Welcome to my channel. Hi everybody, how are you doing? Welcome back to another episode of Legends and Tragedies, and later on we're going to be continuing our discussion of part 7 of the Marilyn Monroe biography. And maybe some of you are wondering, well, why don't you just name it, why don't you just call it the part 8? Because part 7 I've been asking myself that question too. Part 7 comprises a certain set of events that that flow chronologically, and they really best characterize Marilyn Monroe's early 50s life. And so I want to keep it all, nice and condensed and in the same category, right? So this is still part 7, in case you're wondering after all that explanation. And so we will be continuing to discuss basically her relationships and what happened after she made those initial successful movies. So anyway, right now I'm just off to maybe do a little shopping. I forgot to pick up a few things at the Dollarama, so I'm headed there now, and I really want to get that walk in before dark. I only managed about 25 minutes yesterday, so that's not too good. And don't you just hate it when people go 30 in the middle lane? I mean, that's not the speed limit, right? So 30 kilometers is too slow for any urban city, and I don't know why they put themselves in the middle like that, but here I go griping again. guys, so I'm back and I'm ready to get on with the seventh part of the Marilyn Monroe biography. And where we left off last was where her um, Golden Dreams calendar um, was was leaked to the press, and we were discussing who could have done it. It could have been that it was Marilyn herself for publicity, and we don't know. But the producers and director, they were blackmailed, but when they decided to just go with it and allow Marilyn to admit it due to a dire need for money, because in those days, money making for women was not really readily accessible. There was no digital online businesses. They, you know, um, degrees were hard to come by, and so was money. And so, they had gone through a world war, a second world war, and so that left the economy very drained. And Marilyn Monroe didn't find her success that easily, although she had it better than many others, I would say. So uh, she her excuse was that she needed the money. And guys, I'm not saying that being in a birthday suit is itself an act of debauchery or anything. If she had gone on to do other things with that calendar, yeah, I think maybe one could argue that it was a very exploitative and lecherous sort of work contract. But she was not under contract at the time that she did that calendar. She was in between studio contracts, and it was totally sympathetic to many of her fans. So she did kind of get away with that dangerous episode that almost could have cost her career. And so it would be in the preceding time period before she posed for the Golden Dreams calendar that she met Robert Slatzer and became involved with him. And this is before she made any movies or became discovered. And so they developed a very good working relationship, and probably they were chummy as well. And so what happened, guys, was that during this period, after Clash by Night, she, or was it Asphalt Jungle? In between one of these movies, right before this movie was released, she married Slatzer. She, it, I don't know what happened, because maybe she figured, well, now that I've broken into my career and safely landed myself enough roles, maybe now I can do whatever I want, right? And so obviously it was very clear to her, me, and many other people that what she really wanted, guys, was a family and a marriage. Pretty much everything that came with that: children, a home. But this uh elopement, this impromptu marriage would not last, guys. It would not last. And so the marriage actually took place in Tijuana, Mexico, October 1952. And of course, especially in those days, that region was especially popular for secretive and quickie marriages and divorces. However, guys, when I say that it was a quickie, I really mean it because her um her boss, Daryl Zanuck at 20th Century Fox, had it dissolved. He had it dissolved. I guess he put it to her very bluntly. Um, in no way, shape, or form are we going to promote a married starlet. Guys, um, I don't even want to go there, okay? I don't want to go there. That is so um sexist. That is so discriminatory. It is the paramount of firing a mother because she um is expecting a baby. So you know what I'm saying? Um, I guess it was a clause that was implicit in her contract. So, however, I believe that if she had been playing the field with studios and not been under contract with anybody, but just, more or less being hired out or leased, I believe that she could have gotten away with that marriage and ended up probably exactly as she wanted to be, married, um, expecting, and living happily ever after. I'm not sure if that really exists, especially in a life like Marilyn Monroe's. But we have to, take everything with a grain of salt and imagine that Daryl Zanuck ruined her life. We could imagine that, but somewhere down the road, we actually know that that is not the truth. It was pro- probably a little bit of Marilyn's own self destructiveness that brought about her downfall professionally and personally. But I do believe that she had lots and lots of help, but we're getting to that later on. And so, guys, even though many uh, might have been quick to deny the marriage ever took place. It is a fact uh, of common knowledge and public knowledge merely because the documentation does exist. And so, especially in those days where filing systems were becoming very prominent and very much more efficient, especially for people like Marilyn Monroe, right? She was popular, she was famous, and they were going to save that documentation no matter what. And so, what happened was that Zanuck called the married couple, the honeymooners, into his office, and his precise words were to them, "We have spent $500,000 promoting Marilyn's image as the ideal girl. Um, waiting for Mr. Girl, okay, um, the ideal girl waiting for Mr. Right to have kids. And if it gets out that she is married and no longer accessible, her fan mail would drop. We are contemplating whether to renew her option at this point. So, in other words, I do not want this marriage to last. Don't rock the boat. Don't rock the boat because you're not sure yet. We're not sure about you yet." Can you imagine having to terminate a marriage even though she was not really, at the peak of her success yet? So her climb to success was dependent on her marital status. That's horrible. Why should any of that have mattered? I do believe that she could have been the ideal girl, no matter what, no matter what, because um, I kids are passing by. Um, the thing is that I believe that Marilyn Monroe, to our knowledge, to my common knowledge, to everybody's common knowledge, she did everything that she possibly could have. I do believe that she probably made many errors that we are not aware of, which have been hidden successfully by the studio, and even because it would have hindered Marilyn's ability to go on and forgive herself for the mistakes that she may have made. However, uh, I don't think that she was anywhere near criminal or vulgar or rowdy, or you know what I'm saying, guys. I think that her climb to success could be very admirable, and they wanted to keep it like that. So I understand where they were coming from. I don't agree with it, with their logic. I think it's ridiculous, but I understand that they did things a certain way, and they didn't want Marilyn to start rocking the boat because she thought that she had achieved enough stardom to be that independent. So, um, the marriage was dissolved, and I'm not sure that anything ever came out of that marriage. I'm not sure if she was ever expecting Slatzer's child. I don't know anything about any of that. So, um, that's how the ball bounced in that court. So, when I think back about Johnny Hyde and her statement to him that she could not marry him because she did not love him, now I'm rather inclined to believe that she really meant that, and or else she probably would have married him. And plus, he was in show business. He probably would have protected her from that stigma that all stars, young female stars, needed to be single. I think maybe he might have been able to protect her from that, shield her from that vulnerable position. However, um, she, at that point in 1952, Marilyn Monroe did not have the stamina, the power, the success, the stardom, uh, to really stand up to her bosses as she would later on down the road. She did not have what it took. She did not have the required power or any of that. She didn't have what it took to stand them down. And so she allowed it to happen. And so I believe that in a way, she really began to nail the first nail in her coffin. She began to pound it in with um, that ultimate decision to give in. However, at the time, there was no other option for her. And so after Clash by Night, there were four other films released in which Marilyn Monroe um, co-starred in. And so one of them, ironically, was titled We're Not Married. And so it was basically one of those soap opera type 5 episode films that began to become popular at that time. And it was about five couples, all married by the same justice of the peace, and who discovered 2 years later that the license was not valid at the time. And guys, this was a very popular theme in the 50s and 60s, one that was replicated over and over again by various sitcom comedy shows. And something indeed must have happened to set this theme on fire, because it really sold. It was comical. It was dramatic and serious, but at the same time, it could be comical, right? And so that movie did well. The other wives were Ginger Roger, Eve Arden, Mitzi Gaynor, and Zsa Zsa Gabor. I love the Gabor sisters, don't you? And but Marilyn made her mark as the beauty queen who guys, maybe she didn't completely outshine them all, but uh, many sources reveal that she completely outshined all of that magnificent cast of women. And so I can believe it. I can really believe it. And so I believe that Marilyn plays the part of a beauty queen. So, which is quite believable. And who finding she she found out that she could now enter the Miss America competition. I guess there were obstacles that have been presented to her character previous to that, but foolishly, um, even though she was eligible to enter the Miss America competition, she instead entered the Miss Mississippi competition, and she it was just like her, very silly, comical, somewhat nonsensical, but still a very successful film, and during that same period, Marilyn was also given another role in the movie called Full House. Wow, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Which was it originated from the short stories written by O. Henry. No, not the chocolate bar. Um, I'm sorry, I couldn't resist that. But the author O. Henry. And so Marilyn played an elegant streetwalker who is accosted by another actor, and I guess it was the kind of role that kind of it was different from the others that she had been playing, but still, it was believable enough that she pulled it off magnificently. And okay, let's talk a little bit about this film. And so, is she in this movie? She meets up with another character who's kind of like her, and his name was Charles Lofton. And so I guess this role was kind of probably experimental for movie directors and producers to let her explore other avenues of her personality and her character, what she could really pull off in front of a camera and on screen. And she did it. Monkey Business was the other role that she had, and it was another kind of um, silly, fluffy, light comedy with Cary Grant and Ginger Rogers. And so Ginger Rogers, I guess, worked well with Marilyn Monroe because it would be her second movie made with Ginger Rogers. And so I saw that movie and I loved it. I think that Ginger Rogers was one of the best actresses and dancers of her time. And I particularly liked her with Fred Astaire. She teamed up with him in so many movies and musicals. She was a great actress. And so, anyway, um, next comes that psychological drama. Remember when Jean Harlow changed the color of her hair and did a serious role? Well, this would be it, guys. This would be Marilyn's um I don't know what you want to call it. She transformed with this role. Don't bother to knock. And most Monroe fans don't like this movie. I don't understand why. She is not vying for the camera's attention. She is just being herself. She is not dressed up. She is not outfully made up. I think that may be part of it, and it's too bad because in this role you can really see that she plays very well a psychotic babysitter, another very trending theme still to this day, right? And she fantasizes about being very wealthy and very beautiful, which all of us do. But I think she takes it to extremes in this role. And quite frankly, I don't think it's a movie that I have seen ever. I may have seen trailers. Uh, it's never been on TV. Not that I can recall. If it was, I was out. Because I used to sit home during the Marilyn Monroe fests, which usually played all the time throughout the month of August, which was her birthday. I mean, the anniversary of her death. And so on TV, on that channel, that entertainment channel, they would be playing all of these Marilyn Monroe movies, one after the other, constantly, night and day, 24/7. And that was a good channel. I doubt it operates like that anymore, but I used to stay home and mind you, I was in college and university at that time. I used to stay in and just glue myself to the set because I was a fanatic about her roles. I also loved all the roles that she played with, I liked seeing the other actors and how they related to her in the movies. I don't know why that was such a big deal to me, but I loved the costumes, I loved her makeup, and many of these movies are so memorable to me. So I can understand why many people, fans and critics alike, did not want to um, applaud this kind of a role because it wasn't the sort of role that would have made Monroe popular. And I'm going to tell you why. In this movie, she fantasizes about Richard Widmark, the father of the baby that she babysits. And what happens is um, she gets him into the room and she makes a very murderous attempt on the child, which is just like what she claims her grandmother, Della Monroe, did to her. And she is only just prevented by making a fatal attempt on her own life as well. Now, I'm not sure, I can't be completely sure if Widmark is the father of that child or just a friend. I can't, I'm pretty sure he would have been the dad. Anyway, um, the critics said that it was very slow moving and a very melodramatic bore. Well, that is what mental instability is like, right? And so, but another critic wrote, Monroe's unformed, she didn't have a specific character trait in this movie. That's hard to do, right? Um, she played it so well. It was this critic labels that quality as blobby, and so it is a very creepy quality. But Monroe definitely dominated the melodrama, and so it was interesting to see that she could really pull that off. And she did, guys. She did. And so Anne Bancroft, who was one of the co-stars, a wonderful actress, did recall that she was so overcome with Marilyn's performance that she really reacted to it. And she was brought to tears and emotion. And so that is a very good piece of proof that validates the opinion that Marilyn Monroe had a very, very deep and earthy quality as a star, and it could be very well projected on the screen. And so that is interesting and amazing. And it really does make her out to be a very serious and deep character in general, like across the board, regardless of her comedies and her dramas and her singing and acting and dancing. Regardless, she still could play that earthy and deep role and really move the audience to tears. And this is an actress talking. So she would know, right, guys? She would know. So, 1952, as I have explained before, was a pivotal year for Marilyn in many ways, and professionally, she did very well. I would say she did extremely well. She outshone herself and other actors and actresses as well, much to the irritation of one of her male co-stars in the film Clash by Night. However, the next movie that she went on to make in 1952 was entitled Niagara. Now, guys, Niagara is a thriller movie. I've seen it and I adored it. It was almost um uncomfortable for me to imagine such a lighthearted and good-spirited actress person uh like Marilyn Monroe to do the things that this character in Niagara did. And so I'm not going to give it away. I'm sure you can get it if you really want to watch it. I've seen it a few times, and it was shot very close to my province. And so it's very familiar to me, the landscape. As I said, she related very well to dominating landscapes such as Niagara Falls. And so this was the movie that really thrust her right out into the stage of stardom. She was right out there with all the other actors and actresses after this. And she, all of the parts that she had played previously that were, you know, the Jean Harlow dumb blonde type were forgotten. The walk-ons, the voluptuous secretaries, the bimbo type. You know what I'm saying? It was all forgotten because now that she had proven herself in the movie with Richard Widmark about the psychotic babysitter, she now had more control and she had more how do I say this? She had more dominance in terms of her role as an actress in Hollywood. She could now begin to play her cards well and pick and choose much better than she had been up to this point. So, after the film was released, she really, she did have a bit of a ditzy blonde kind of stereotype role, but she was so cunning and so sly, guys, that never again would the audience take her um, at face value like that. They would always have to second guess her playing any role that she chose because of her ability to con and fool and deceive. She was really naughty in this movie, and you know, it made her out to be a criminal actually, but I don't want to spoil the movie for you. The ending was absolutely, you know, It was magnificent. It was the ending that really came back to haunt all of us. It was a surprise ending, and that went so well. So, anyway, um, she made it, guys. She made it to Hollywood. And so this is a very pivotal year for her. And still, there's one more event that would make 1952 a very, very memorable year in the life and times of Marilyn Monroe. Listen on. So, guys, one evening in March 1952, um, a girlfriend of hers called Marilyn up on the phone and asked her to come on a blind date with her. So it would be, I guess, a double date. So Marilyn's friend had made all the arrangements and reservations at a beautiful Hollywood restaurant. And at first, guys, Marilyn Monroe, I guess, wasn't up to it. She may have been tired or just not in the mood to go out and meet people. And so what happened was she initially turned it down. She refused. She tried to come up with an excuse and tried to get out of it. However, the girlfriend knew Marilyn Monroe a little bit too well, I would say. And so she would not relent. She called Marilyn again. And so what happened was Marilyn finally agreed, okay, I'll come. Where do I meet you? What time? And so soon after arriving there and meeting up with her friends, she found herself having a wonderful time with a retired baseball player whose name she had never heard before. And that retired baseball player was named Joe DiMaggio. So little did Marilyn know that DiMaggio was uh, a love-struck fan who had obviously heard of Golden Dreams, and he was mad. He was mad about her, and it was actually his idea to set up the blind date. And so, however, Marilyn didn't really, know much about baseball, and she didn't really know who he was, and she was actually kind of biased against ball players because they were to be, mostly the loud and athletic type and very flashy and false, right? False. And so, getting to know DiMaggio, she found out that he was none of that. And so he wore immaculate, conservative clothes. He had a thing for suits. And he was considerably older than she was, had a little gray in his hair. I think he was just right for her. And so he was extremely gentlemanly and considerate and very polite. Yes, I would like to know if he has any living relatives still around. Sounds wonderful to me. And so, although Marilyn did drive him back to his hotel after that first dinner, she refused his invitation to go inside. And that is very commendable. I would imagine she didn't want to end up in Tijuana married again, right? So he obviously threatened her. How do I say this? He, I guess he made her more vulnerable than she actually thought she could be. She knew that if she got too close to Joe DiMaggio, she would break. And then maybe so would her career. I would imagine that this was a very trying and complicated time for Marilyn Monroe. It would have uh, required her to gain all the willpower and trust that she had in her. And don't forget, guys, it was hard for her to trust too, right? And so it's become legend that after that first date, Marilyn Monroe would apparently, um, to him, have given him the brush off. She just, you know, didn't take his calls. She didn't phone him. She had rebuked his invitation to come into his home. No, she had none of that. And she went 2 weeks without responding to any of his messages at all. And so, but what she was actually doing, guys, during this period, and she was quite smart at that. She had been digging up bits of information here and there regarding Joe DiMaggio's career. And what happened was that she was interested enough to call him back for a date. And after that, guys, after that 2 week separation, when they initially met, they became a couple. They were an item. They were also very inseparable. And so DiMaggio was an American born in California in 1914. So he was 8 years her senior. And so he had been playing with the New York Yankees since 1936. And in 41, after the Yankees lost a series of games, he broke what he did was he just kind of called it quits with that team. And that is to say, I guess I suppose he made a deal with himself. Either I win the next game or I'm out of here. And so what happened, guys, is that he broke a record. He he followed those 4 consecutive losses for the New York Yankees with a fifth win, and put his team into the World Series championships. And so he was actually known as Joltin' Joe and the Yankee Clipper, and went into the record books as the greatest baseball player of them all. And he did eventually retire in 51, right before he met Marilyn. And he was earning, and for then it was a good salary, $100,000 a year. The first ball player ever in history to receive such a salary. And so he had been previously married and divorced to and from an actress by the name of Dorothy Arnold. But he did have a son, Joe Jr., from that marriage, who was by then in his early teens. And he, by the time that Joe met Marilyn, this Joe Jr. was heading off to military school. And so I'm impressed, guys. I'm impressed. So during this period, Joe was living in San Francisco, and his sister Marie was helping him with his household, and he also owned a restaurant on Fisherman's Wharf, a favorite and very popular tourist area in those days. And he was not a very outgoing man, so he was the complete opposite of what Marilyn had initially thought. And so he preferred to just stick around at home quietly in the evenings, chatting with male friends about ball games or just watching movies and sports. He did not dance at all and disliked parties. So I see a bit of a clash here with Marilyn, but he was very happy fishing from his boat, and he did have a boat. And so in many ways, he seems quite a bit unlikely as a partner for a very glamorous and outgoing star like Marilyn Monroe, doesn't he? And so, during this time when Marilyn and Joe were getting to know each other, they actually didn't marry until 1954, and I think that that was a very smart move on Marilyn's part. She did take the time to get to know him. Maybe she had been disappointed by other suitors, but what happened was the public and the media ate them both up. They were wonderful public figures, and together they were an explosion of love and attraction for the media, especially. And so, from the outside, on the surface, they seemed to be a perfect match, but really, they had a lot of personality clashes there. I wouldn't say that it would have made for a bad relationship, but they probably didn't enjoy doing the same things together all the time, right? And so, it does seem very apparent that they were making a very serious effort to to create and maintain a serious and solid relationship. And so, in many ways, Joe represented the kind of man that Marilyn had always been drawn to since the days of her marriage to her first husband, Jim. And he was very gentle, very conservative and traditional, very masculine. And guys, he was of Italian ethnicity. So I would say, yes, that's a plus too. And so, they got along well on many levels, and they got to know each other on many levels. And so they were certainly and very clearly in love. But basic differences did eventually begin, and the arguments began, you know, at a snail's pace first, and then with such frequency that they had very loud and volatile arguments. And so what happened is that she eventually found out that he hated Hollywood and the whole film industry. Um, and so he actually was very he was very convinced of the idea that Hollywood was comprised of and manipulated by phonies. Well, in a way, um, you know, he was pretty much almost half right. And so he was very abrupt and impatient with her friends, probably rude, and her professional colleagues, who he contemptuously called phonies. And just like Johnny Hyde and other people, he especially hated Natasha. And so, guys, Natasha was still around, although Marilyn was still not as attached to her as she had been in the past. She was still a big fixture in Marilyn's life. And so we're going to stop the vlog right here. And so this brings us to the end of part 7 of the Marilyn Monroe biography. And next time we will be continuing with the relationship, and we will have to wait and see what happens with Joe. And so thank you very much for listening and watching, and please do not forget to like and subscribe. Bye for now.